For those of you who don't know me, I am Karen Christian. I was a grad student among, I think, some of the first that Juan had at UC Irvine. I'm not going to say what year, but I'm very honored and very pleased to be here today. 3 years ago, also in October, I spoke at another memorial for a person who passed away much too young. My 49-year-old brother-in-law died in a fluke accident, and then as now, I remember wanting to say just the right thing to help us make some sense out of what had happened. I discovered that day, though, that the moments of joy and even laughter that we were able to experience came from the many little stories, the little stories that were told, stories that created a more complex picture of my brother-in-law than I had ever seen. So I'm going to share with you today my piece of the Juan Bruce-Novoa picture, which is part of the UCI grad student picture, or part of the UCI grad student mafia picture. That comes later. As we drove up here, John Waldron and I, a fellow grad student, were pretty sure that we were lost, but then we saw an enormous coffee urn and thought, this must be the right place. And the combination of coffee and kuchen immediately brings back memories for me. Something that I will always associate with Juan is an amazing experience that several of us had with him in one of his many trips to Germany. Okay, here's a year. In 1990, there was a conference on U.S. Latino cultures in Germany, and Juan encouraged a number of us to prepare papers and to attend this conference. This was the pinnacle grad student experience. We got to hobnob with these big wigs that we had just studied, and more importantly, Juan managed to make all of us feel like our ideas were important, that we deserved a place at the critics' table. And those of us from UCI sort of started going around together and began calling ourselves a mafia. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. As probably most of you know, Juan loved Germany. I think we could say he thrived there. Germans were fascinated with U.S. Latino culture, and he was fascinated with telling them about it. More importantly, in Germany there was lots of good coffee and bread. I recall he loved the climate because it was so gloomy. I remember him saying rainy, cloudy days were his favorite, and that he wished he had a tunnel that connected his house to the UCI campus so he could avoid all that blasted sunshine. He probably would have hated this place. That's probably why he has this expression on his face. When is the fog going to remove? That was just one of the kind of many quirky comments, these moments that still make me chuckle. At the same conference in Germany, Juan was one of the keynote speakers. People idolized him. He was the rock star. And he ended one of his typically provocative talks. I will never know if this was planned or not, but he ended by saying, I better end now since I'm running out of town. And then he said, oh, I mean running out of time. But there were always people who probably almost wanted to run him out of town, and so it seemed kind of appropriate. In class, more moments. There was the way he would drop some bombshell about a venerated work of Chicano literature and produce, I'm so glad for these photos, that famous half smile. Did he really mean what he had just said? Or was he just, as Juan Carlos said, trying to make sure that we learn to question absolutely everything? My last memories of Juan, this is where it gets hard, are from UCI during the Mexicanistas conference last April. With his usual generosity, he invited a group of us to lunch, and for the 100th time, I wondered why I got to be part of this inner sanctum. We ate lunch at the University Club in another sun-filled room. That must have been really unpleasant. And we talked about plans, we talked about future projects. The tone was upbeat and optimistic. We joked with Juan about his dietary restrictions, about inconvenient wheelchair access. We even managed to make fun of him because he was carrying Mary Ann's purse on his lap and it matched his outfit. He seemed rather pleased about that. And that's how I wanted to believe, and I really really did, that his health problems were just a bump in the road, that soon we would meet again at another conference, listen to some papers, and point out all their flaws, naturally, and then find the best place in town to eat. I guess that isn't going to happen. But in a way, and I have been away from UCI for many, many years, but I've always imagined that Juan is with me when I present a paper, sitting towards the back of the room with a quizzical, enigmatic expression on his face. Is he thinking that I sound like a complete idiot? Is he reminding himself not to admit any more students from Kansas to the UCI grad program? Is he wondering if there's a place to get a real cup of coffee nearby? Or maybe is he trying just to figure out how he can declare visits to Disneyland as a professional expense? In the name of cultural criticism, of course. Thank you, Juan, who must be here somewhere, for generously sharing your skepticism and your brilliant ideas with me and so many other students. Marianne, Juan Carlos, thank you for making me feel like part of your family. I'm honored